All right. I want to say welcome to everyone for attending one of our legacy webinars here at Headway Capital. Today, we have a very special guest. I always love when we have guests on our show because guests add a tremendous amount of value. If you're an investor, if you're a passive investor, even if you're an active investor and you're looking to deploy some of your IRA funds, or maybe you didn't even know that you can use your IRA funds to actually invest in private investments like commercial real estate, crypto, businesses. There's so many cool things you can invest in with a self-directed IRA. That's why I'm really excited. I'm excited we were able to get Zach here from Quest, who is a local Texan. We're based here in Houston. Zach, I believe you're in Houston as well, or close by at least. I've known lots of people at Quest over the years, and I've always had a pleasant experience, and they've always taken really good care of our investors. So we're excited to have Zach present this evening. I'm going to spend a couple minutes just kind of talking a little bit about us, and I'm going to throw over the mic to you, Zach, and we'll go ahead and get started.
Perfect.
All right. So quick disclaimer for everyone, just we kind of have to go through this. Attorneys recommend it. This webinar is for educational purposes only. It's obviously not legal or investing advice. And anytime you're considering any type of alternative investment, you should always contact your wealth manager. You should always contact your CPA. You should always contact your attorney to make sure that you are doing what's best for you and your portfolio. We're just here to educate and to provide you with the knowledge you need to make educated decisions. If you don't know who I am, if you don't know who Headway is, I want to say welcome. We're excited you're here, excited at the opportunity to get to connect with you, hopefully after this webinar. But my name is Brian, and I'm the Director of Investor Relations here at Headway Capital. We are a private real estate investment firm based in Houston, Texas. We were designed to help build and protect the wealth of busy professionals, particularly accredited investors. We want to give our investors, our capital partners, the opportunity to do what matters most to them, to spend time with their families, to spend time with the jobs that they love, and to be able to generate passive income from commercial real estate by partnering with us. So we have lots of experience investing in real estate. I'll talk a little bit about each one of us without going too much in detail and bore you. Sid and Anam, they're the founders of Headway Capital. They're a husband and wife couple. Sid has an oil and gas background, engineering background, worked at some of the big oil and gas companies here in Houston for a while, was able to accumulate a very large residential single family portfolio, almost 40 houses. And eventually, with him and his wife, Anam, decided they wanted to graduate, as I like to describe, into commercial real estate, into commercial multifamily. And we're able to slowly sell off that portfolio and transition over to apartment investing. And that is what allowed Sid to leave his W-2 job, go full-time in commercial real estate, and actually launch Headway Properties. So we are a vertically integrated property management company as well. So when you invest your capital with us over here at Headway, you know it's in good hands because we are the ones managing the assets here in Houston. We are the ones that are living the day-to-day grind of making sure those properties are performing. Anam helps us as well with the business development side of things. Anam is a GI doc by trade, so she is full-time still doing that. She loves her patients. She loves what she does. And this is just something that she does in her spare time on the weekends when she's not serving her patients and working on her practice. It's just helping to educate physicians, doctors, other people that are very busy, that have the money to invest but don't know how. And then I mentioned myself, my real estate journey got started in 2017, if I'm not mistaken, 2017, 2018. Very similar to some of you. I thought single family investing was the way, and I started deploying my own personal capital into residential homes, bought a few homes, had a small rental portfolio, and very quickly decided that I needed to scale if I really wanted to build that true passive income and also to really impact my net worth. And I started investing in apartments at another boutique private equity firm in early 2020, right around the time COVID was starting. So kind of rode that last wave, as I like to speak, and really learned a lot about it, and really fell in love with talking to investors, talking to people from all kinds of different backgrounds, all walks of life that are looking to generate passive income and build and protect their wealth. And that's what got me to the seat here today. And then last but not least, we have Mr. Umar, who's our CFO and CIO, who's basically the numbers guy. He's making sure all of our deals pencil out well and making sure that all of our investment assets that we acquire with our investing partners are performing up to standard. Next slide. Just talk a little bit about our track record. We have a little over 500 million in assets under management, which is a little over 3,000 units. And you'll see here we have over 400 active passive investors, many investors, which is why I'm excited about today, who do choose to invest through their self-directed IRA. I want to say it's quite a hefty percentage, super common, which is great. So this is going to be super valuable today. We do target about a 7 or 8% cash on cash return on the baseline. And then we try to hit that 20-25% average annualized return on the low side as well. Our goal is to double our investors' money in 5 years or less. And we do that by being focused, by being purposeful, disciplined, and consistent. So we do what we say we're going to do. We do things with intent. We're very fiscally responsible. We watch every penny that goes in and out of our bank account to make sure that we're spending our investors' capital wisely and that we're spending the property's revenue that it generates properly as well. And we stay consistent. We're here for the long run. So if it's your first time here and you're not a part of our private investors club, I highly recommend you sign up for this, or at least get on a call with me or somebody on my team to discuss. This is our private club for our investors that want to gain access to our deals. If you want to passively invest in commercial real estate like multifamily apartments or car washes, you'll need to get in the club. It's just a quick screening call you'll have with me to talk about your goals, make sure that we're a good fit for each other. And once you gain access to this, there's no charge. We just have to make sure that you're qualified and that you are an accredited investor. You'll start getting content from us, and you'll start getting invitations from us. And then when we have investment opportunities that we think are coming, I think it's going to be a very active year. It's probably the second half of next year, but you never know. It could be sooner depending on what the Fed does. When those investment opportunities come up, you're going to get phone calls, texts, emails from us saying like, hey, there's an investment opportunity. Are you interested in participating? But the only way you can see that is by being part of our investment club. And if you want to join, scan this QR code or just reply to one of the emails you get from me after this webinar. There's lots of ways to contact me. We're definitely out there. So just reach out. You can also go to our website, headwayinvestment.com. There's a link that says apply to invest. It's a real quick form. We're going to ask you a handful of questions. It'll come over to our team. We'll reach out to you pretty quickly just to get a call scheduled with somebody on our investor relations team. So without further ado, I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to pass it over to our awesome guest today, Mr. Zachary Wilson over at Quest. Welcome, Zach.
Awesome. Thank you, Brian. Thank you for having us out. We always like to do, these types of presentations because, like you said, it's not something that's very well known that you have this option available to you. All right. A lot of people are thinking, when I'm saving up for retirement, I'm going through my employer plan and maybe I'm putting someone in an IRA and really I'm just setting it and hoping that it grows fast enough. We like to think, there's an alternative way to go about that gives you a little bit more control. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So I'll go ahead and share my screen. All right. So jumping right into it, because I know, got a lot of information to get through and I want to leave some room for Q&A at the end. So before we get started, everything you're about to use for educational purposes only, right? So it's important to understand the role that we will play when it comes to your retirement investments. We're here to offer as many resources and as much education as we can to our clients and investors. But as an entity, Quest doesn't endorse any sort of, Quest doesn't provide any sort of tax, legal, or investment advice, nor do we endorse any specific investments. So a little bit about us, just to start. We are the largest self-directed IRA custodian in the state of Texas. We have roughly 20,000 active investor clients all across the country, and we have just over $3 billion in assets under management, which is super exciting because that's a milestone we've been working towards for a while. It's a pretty huge milestone for us, and we're hoping that keeps growing. We have over 100 employees, 34 of which are certified IRA service professionals. So what does that mean? Well, that means when you give us a call, you're going to have someone who answers the phone. You're not going to get a machine, and they're going to be able to answer most questions that you have. And if you want to take a deep dive, we have those 34 certified IRA service professionals there to take that dive with you. So a little bit about one thing I always like to talk about whenever we're getting into self-direction is let's lay a foundation of how the IRS sees every single entity in the United States. All right, so it's going to put them in one of two categories. First of them being a taxable entity, and obviously the other side being then a non-taxable entity. So we're looking at taxable entities. The very first is you and anything you establish, right? Which makes sense. You go to work, you earn that W-2 income or your 1099 income, and you're taxed on the income as you make it. All right, let's take one step further and say, okay, well, I want to start doing some investments and I wanted some asset protection. So I'm going to establish an LLC. Well, that LLC is going to be usually considered a taxable entity as a pass-through entity. All right. And then one step further, let's say you found a business, you're selling a product or service, and you establish a corporation, whether it's an S Corp or a C Corp. Well, those are taxable entities as well. Again, either as a pass-through entity or taxed as the entity itself. This even extends to things like trusts, right? This is your land trust, your personal property trust. These trusts are falling in that taxable entity category as well. Now, when I say non-taxable entities, first thing that comes to mind is usually, church, nonprofit organization, a charity. Well, your self-directed IRA is considered a non-taxable entity. It falls under those same regulations and guidelines. On top of that, this is going to extend to things like your qualified retirement plans, right? These are your 401ks, your 403bs, TSPs, TRSs, right? Those accounts that you have with your employer, those are going to be considered tax exempt entities as well. Right. This also includes things like the solo 401k, which can be self-directed, just like the traditional or the Roth IRA, even partnered together on certain investments. All right. But really, what does that term mean? What is a self-directed IRA? Well, believe it or not, there is no legal distinction between your self-directed traditional or your self-directed Roth IRA versus your traditional Roth IRA you would have at Fidelity, Charles Schwab, TD Ameritrade. All right. They're the same exact accounts. The difference is the custodian themselves. All right. Those custodians, right? Your Fidelities, your larger public custodians, well, they allow you to invest into publicly traded assets. Or on the flip side of the custodian like Quest, we allow for privately held assets. Specifically, real estate style investments is what we specialize in. So notice that a self-directed IRA isn't its own unique account. That's simply a description of an IRA that you probably already have, or you're just simply looking to roll funds into, right? Knowing that it's just describing a type of IRA, well, what types of IRAs can be self-directed? At Quest, we hold 7 different types of accounts that fall into 3 different categories, the first of which being your employer plans. So these are going to be your traditional and your Roth IRAs. By far the most popular accounts that we have here at Quest, the traditional IRA being the most popular in the United States when it comes to IRAs. Now, it's not the most popular because it's the best one, right? I don't think that's the best way to think about it, right? Each one will play its own individual role in your portfolio. But the reason that traditional IRA is so common is because of its pre-tax status. So if you have that 401k or just a past employer plan, unless you specified otherwise, all of the contributions that both you and your employer have been making to that employer plan have been made as pre-tax contributions. So if you're looking to roll the funds over into an IRA and you're trying to avoid any sort of tax implication on that movement of funds, well, then you roll it over into an account that matches that pre-tax status, which is that traditional IRA. Now, from there, the funds are growing tax deferred. And then down the line, come retirement, when you're taking those funds out, essentially you're just adding those distributions to your adjusted gross income for that year. Right, now, on the flip side is the Roth IRA, personally my favorite account. The Roth IRA has a post-tax status. Now, that post-tax status gives it 2 distinct advantages. The first one is that contributions made to the Roth IRA, right? Contributions. These are funds that came directly from your own pocket, right? Your own checking or savings account. Contributions to the Roth IRA can come out of that Roth IRA tax and penalty free at any time. It does not matter how old you are or how long you've had that Roth IRA open. So for example, let's say over the next 5 years, you put in $6,000 a year. So at the end of year 5, you've got $30,000 in that Roth IRA as contributions. Well, around that time, maybe, man, the car's broken down. I need a new car, but I really don't want a car note. Or I want to acquire a new property. I want to put a pretty sizable down payment so I can limit my LTV. And so I'd like to use that $30,000 to go towards that down payment. Well, awesome. You have that pool of $30,000 to pull from, right? To pull from out of that IRA to use as you see fit without seeing any sort of tax implication on that distribution. Right. The second distinct advantage that the Roth IRA has because of its post-tax status is the growth in the account. Notice with the traditional IRA, those funds were growing tax deferred, whereas in the Roth IRA, those funds are growing tax free. So in that same example, right, $6,000 a year, let's say I continue on that trend and I make my investments. And so over the next, over the next several years until my retirement, I grow it to 50,000 or 100,000, maybe even $1 million. Well, as long as when I take the funds out, A, I have had a Roth IRA open and funded for at least 5 years, and B, I am over the age of 59 and a half, then all of those funds, all of that growth experienced in that account comes out tax and penalty free. Uncle Sam doesn't get to touch a dime of it. That's what makes that Roth IRA such an attractive account, is because once you get to that threshold, once you meet those two requirements, that Roth IRA is about the most attractive account that there is. The second category is going to be the employer plans. All right, now I'm not going to spend too much time going over the nitty-gritty details of these plans. This is going to include things like the SEP, the Simple, and the Solo 401k. Right, just know that these plans are designed for self-employed individuals that are looking to take advantage of the higher contribution limits. Right, when I say higher, I'm talking about a substantial amount. We're talking about the personal accounts, the traditional and Roth. Right, those allow you to put in $6,500 for 2023, and then if you're over 50, that bumps up to $7,500. Each of those amounts goes up. I'm sorry, the contribution limit goes up by 500 next year, but still you're looking at 7,000 if you're under 50, and then 8,000 if you're over 50. On the flip side, we look at the employer plans, things like the SEP IRA or the Solo 401k. Those allow for contributions of upwards of 66,000 in a year, and if you're over 50, with the Solo 401k specifically, you can contribute up to $73,500 in that account. So notice that really allows you to take advantage and put a lot of funds in there on an annual basis. All right, if you're interested in those, you're a self-employed individual, you think you might qualify for one of these, reach out to me. I'll be happy to sit down and have a consultation with you. We can take a look at it. All right, and the final category is going to be the specialty plans. Right, this is going to include the HSA and the ESA. So that Coverdell ESA, which is the Education and Savings Account, right? That's an account meant to benefit you now, along with that HSA. These are accounts meant to benefit you now. These are not retirement accounts. However, they can be self-directed and partnered with your retirement accounts to help them grow a little bit faster. So what function are they performing within your portfolio? Well, the Education Savings Account is there to alleviate the stresses and the expenses that come with education for your children. So that Education Savings Account is going to be treated kind of like a Roth IRA. Post-tax funds are going to go in. You can self-direct it, help it grow. And as long as the funds that are coming out are going towards qualified education expenses, they're going to come out tax and penalty free. Right, so this is things like tuition, uniforms, school supplies, right? During COVID, for example, when online learning was required, people were using their ESA to cover their internet bills. Now, I don't know if that would work now, but the option was there, and it shows it's a little bit flexible depending upon what the needs of your child are at that given time. Next one is going to be the HSA. Personally, I think this is the most underutilized account that we have here at Quest. And the reason is because it has the best of both worlds. All right, now, what do I mean by that? Well, funds that are going into that HSA, funds that are going into the HSA are treated like traditional IRA funds, right? What does that mean? Well, whenever you're making your contribution, you're able to take a tax deduction of the amount that you contributed to that HSA. So those are going in as pre-tax funds. They can be self-directed. You help it grow a little bit faster. And then as long as you're taking the funds out to go towards qualified medical expenses, then they're coming out tax and penalty free like a Roth IRA. So notice it got the benefits of both. It had the advantages of a traditional IRA going in, and it had the advantages of a Roth IRA coming out. Right now, I know what you're thinking, right? We're talking about qualified medical expenses. Well, it's probably going to be a very short list that the IRS is going to be very particular over. Well, in this case, that's actually not it. All right, so the list of what you can spend it on is longer than the list of what you can't spend it on, believe it or not. All right, so co-pays, prescription drugs, over-the-counter drugs, dental, vision expenses, all of that can be done using your HSA. All right, so now that we know what types of accounts can be self-directed, why should I establish a self-directed IRA, right? Why do I want to operate one of these accounts? Well, there's several advantages that it offers, but let's look at some of the most important ones. The first one is going to be diversification, true diversification. When you're working with your financial planner, you might tell you, okay, let's diversify your portfolio, right? Let's get you into some low risk, low yield mutual funds that are just going to be our steady ones. Maybe if you've got some exposure, if you can afford a little bit more risk, we're going to put you in some higher risk individual stocks. Maybe we'll get you in some dividend paying stocks. And right now the yield on bonds is pretty high, so we'll purchase some bonds, right? Well, notice that if you're in the public market, you're really just putting your eggs in different parts of what is overall the same basket. All right. With an IRA like a custodian like Quest, it allows you to have that true diversification that's arm's length distance from the public market. So we're talking about into alternative assets, right? Things outside of the public market. So these are things like real estate, private entities, promissory notes. We want to be a private money lender, right? So notice these are going to be independent. Obviously, they're always going to be influenced somewhat, but they get out of the public market to get you a little bit more control over those investments. The second one is going to be the tax savings, right? So let's say you were doing an investment yourself and you did a fix and flip. And so you purchased a property, you fixed it, you flipped it, you sold it. Well, when you got that profit, you have two choices. Either you pay the taxes on it as income, or you will try to 1031 those funds, put into a 1031 to try and defer that taxation until later. Well, with the accounts like a traditional IRA or like a Roth IRA, by their very nature, those funds are growing tax deferred, and in some cases like the Roth, tax free. So it negates the need for that 1031 at all. Right? That's why it allows you to get the full return, and you're not restricted on the next type of investment, right? What asset class you're going to be going into. You're not restricted on the timeline of the next investment or the value of that next investment. You truly have control to take advantage of these tax preferred accounts. And the final one is investing in what you know best. If you're on this call or you're watching this video at a later time, either A, you have a foundation of real estate knowledge that you're looking to build upon, or B, you're looking to form that foundation now. Either way, why not utilize that foundation that you have to help build a retirement and reach the goals that you see fit, rather than just simply putting them in the market, crossing your fingers and hoping that it grows to the point that you want it to, so that you can live the life that you envisioned when you get to retirement age. Right now, the IRS isn't going to give you these restrictions. I'm sorry, it's not going to give you these advantages without putting some restrictions. So let's run through those. I know we're kind of on the up against the clock, so I'll run through these really quickly. These are going to be in three different categories. This is your people restrictions, your transaction restrictions, and your investment restrictions. So when it comes to the people restrictions, really, we're looking at the people you cannot commingle these funds with, right? Believe it or not, the very top of that list is you as an individual. Seems counterintuitive at first, but really when you think about it, it makes sense. If I was able to take advantage of these accounts now and benefit personally, I wouldn't do investments in any other account, right? I would receive my benefit now in these retirement accounts. So because you're prohibited, they do that so that you're not receiving a benefit until down the line come retirement, which is what these accounts are designed for. All right. On that list as well, it's going to be you, your spouse, your lineal ascendants, so parents, grandparents, your lineal descendants, children, grandchildren, their spouses, or any companies that those people own, control, manage, or are highly compensated by. Just think any companies that they're really affiliated with. Right now, why? Those people has to deal with the line of inheritance. All right. Love my sisters to death. I would do anything for them. But when I pass, they're not set as my beneficiaries. Right. Usually, if you don't have children, it's going to be your parents. If you do have children, it's your children or your spouse. All right. Now, the IRS knows this, and that's why they're going to set those people up and down the family tree and the spouses as disqualified people, because if they were allowed to do investments, they would essentially be doing investments with an account that they're going to inherit, which would just be a roundabout way of self-dealing. Now, what can't you do with those people? Well, you can't buy, sell, trade, loan, extend a service to, or receive a benefit from, whether direct or indirect, any of those people. So if I own a property in my IRA, I can't sell it to any one of my disqualified parties, and vice versa. If they own a property, they can't sell it to me, because what stops me from buying or selling, get pennies on the dollar to benefit one of the, either the person or the account. Right. Now, the investment restrictions, very short. You can't invest into life insurance policies, and you can't invest into collectibles. Right? These are things like vintage cars, art, alcohol, things that it's a little bit harder to get a objective appraisal, and the value is more of a subjective opinion. All right. So what can you invest in? Well, just about anything you could do personally. You want to get into real estate, direct ownership? Awesome. Purchase some real estate. You can even get a little bit more advanced and go to things like tax liens, foreclosures, right? But let's say you don't want to take title, you just want to be a lender. Also be a lender, whether it be secured or unsecured. I'm not here to judge. If you want to do simple mortgage lending, you could do convertible notes, profit sharing notes, right? But let's say rather than that, you'd rather just put your funds there, sit back and let someone else handle it and do the investing for you. Awesome. Invest into a fund. That's a private entity investment. That's absolutely eligible within your IRA. Things like multifamily syndications are one of the most common investments we see because of their passive nature and how much they coincide with an investment vehicle like an IRA. All right. So we're up against the clock here. Usually I talk about how you fund it, but we can kind of skip all of that. If you have any questions, here's my contact information. We can take a look. We can see how you go about funding it. We can take a look at your scenario, but I didn't want to go past the 5:30 mark without leaving some room for Q&A. So if anyone on the chat, if you have any questions at all, feel free to throw them my way.
Yeah, Zach, I have some questions I want to throw in here. I actually think we have a couple minutes. I don't know how quickly you can go through it, but let's talk a little bit about the funding, if you wouldn't mind going back. I think that's a big question we get all the time is because, the thing we think about as the investing partner is time is of the essence, right? So what you don't want to do, or it's obviously possible you guys are great at what you do, but what you don't want to do is, talk to Brian and say, Brian, I want to invest $100,000, but I want to do it through my retirement accounts and I don't have any of it set up yet. I'm sure you get those calls and you guys are, occasionally, well, you guys have the team to be able to put that stuff together pretty quickly, but it's not ideal, right? So it's better to get this set up before you're ready to invest so that it's all, nicely put together and they can just pick up the phone and say, hey, I'm partnering with Headway. I'm sending you over all the docs and they can kind of get the ball rolling. So exactly. Can you just talk real quick about, how these get funded and sort of best practice in getting them set up?
Yeah, absolutely. So you're right. Any processes that are internal, we move very quickly. So for example, you send us an application. Once we get it, 24 to 48 hours, we've got that account established for you. All right. 3 ways you fund it. First one is contributions. These are funds from your own pocket that you put into the account. If you want to wire them, the funds are there the next day. Right. As soon as you send the wire, next day the funds are available and you're good to go. Now, the other two are going to be the most common ways people fund it. And that's where the timing is important. Now, the transfers from another IRA, right? That's going to be from like if you've got a traditional IRA at Quest and you want to move funds from a traditional IRA at Fidelity, awesome, right? The timing is going to be all about the other custodian. Now, we will initiate that transfer that you send us a transfer form that same day we're initiating the movement of funds, but the other custodian could have different processing times. For example, Fidelity, 3 to 5 days, they get it turned around and sent over. They're pretty consistent with that. But, companies like, for example, Merrill Edge can take sometimes up to 2 weeks to process a transfer request. So it really depends on your custodian. Now, rolling over from an old employer plan, these are the ones where you're going to want to give yourself as much time as possible. When it comes to a rollover from an old employer plan, the administrator 9 times out of 10 will only send the funds via check. And sometimes they will only send it via check to the address they have on file for you as an individual. So they mail it to you, then you have to mail it to us. Once it gets to us, there's a 5 business day hold to let that check clear before the funds are available in your account. So if you're rolling the funds over, we say prepare for 2 to 3 weeks. It can happen quicker than that, but give yourself that cushion just in case that administrator drags their feet or something gets lost in the mail or the mail takes longer than expected to get to us, right? You just want to prepare for those variables. That way we'd rather under promise, overachieve than tell you, rather than the opposite and tell you, hey, yeah, we can get it done super quick. And then all of a sudden, we don't receive the check for 2 weeks.
Right. No, that makes sense. And I'm speaking from experience here. Not everybody's as fast as you. Some of the big names that everybody knows, especially if it was an employer-based account, I feel like they're not always the quickest. They don't have the same incentives we do. And when we launch an investment opportunity, typically it's a 3 to 4 week window for you to invest. And you just mentioned, plan for 2 to 3 weeks, sort of base case, but there's of course always a worst case where It can take much longer. So I guess what I'm trying to say is I'm just recommending everybody who's on the webinar and anybody who watches this is they want to establish a relationship with you now. And get the account set up now, and you can always add to it later and kind of work on rolling stuff over. But it's better to not wait till the last minute is I guess where I'm at with that one. So
yeah, absolutely. And on that note, anybody on this call right now, if you're looking to set up the account, give me a call. You have my contact information right here, or shoot me over an email. We'll waive your open account fee. Just reference this call, and we'll take care of that for you, so you get it for free.
Awesome. Awesome. We had a good question come through, Zach, about the fees for Quest side. Can you talk a little bit about the fees that you guys incorporate?
Absolutely. I'll run through them real quick. We're super upfront about every single one of our fees. So the first one, $100 to establish the account. Like I said, if you're on this call, let me know whenever you send me an email, we'll waive that $100 fee. Now, second one, these next fees wouldn't be incurred until we actually funded your investment. So the first one, $125 asset purchase fee. Now, what that's covering is we're assigning a specialist to you that's working with you as well as with any syndicator, borrower, title company to gather documentation. Once we've got it, we audit everything to be sure it's vested correctly and to be sure there are no blatantly prohibited transactions, putting the account at risk. All right. Next fee is going to be $30 to send the funds out as a wire. If you can accept it as an ACH, ACHs are completely free. Then all of those are just the one-time fees. The only recurring fee you're looking at is your annual administrative fee. This one will depend on the value of the account, but the maximum that it could be $350 per asset per year. So you move $1 million over and it's all going towards a single investment, $350 a year is what you're looking at.
Very affordable. And I like your transparency with your fees too. So that's good knowing. Another question came through. Do most investors set up LLCs within the IRA for asset protection for multiple investments?
So that one honestly is going to depend on the investment type, right? So if it's something like like you're lending or you're investing into maybe, like a syndication where it's very, very passive, you're funding one time, you're really just sitting back and you're waiting for your return at that point, and you don't have exposure to real liabilities, then maybe it doesn't make sense. Obviously, at any point you could, but there's really no liability that you're looking to gain additional protection on. Now, on the flip side, let's say you purchase a property and you want to put a tenant in there. Well, obviously, you've got something living in that property. That's an increased liability. So maybe now it does make sense to form an LLC. You work with an attorney. They add some asset protection specifically designed for someone who has like a tenant involved. And now the IRA invests into the LLC purchases the property, and that's the owner of that property. So bottom line, it depends on the investments. You should always consult with an attorney when talking about that kind of stuff, whenever you're asking, but that's some of the things to think about as you're approaching that problem.
Some good information. Hopefully that answers the question. I wanted to talk just a little bit. We had a question come through. Somebody was asking about compliance, and I know you kind of, I wouldn't say passed through it, but talked about it. But it's really important that they work with a really knowledgeable, really experienced custodian, because if you're not doing this stuff the right way, you can get in some pretty big trouble, right? Can you talk a little bit about, making sure, how can an investor make sure they're working with somebody who's following the right compliance? Because really they want to be able to maximize the tax benefits that come along with investing, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So really it boils down to how knowledgeable your custodian is, right? You want to be able to give someone a call, right? Ask. I have clients all the time that will give me a call, like, hey, this is what I'm thinking about doing. Are there any problems that you see? All right. Yeah, sometimes we'll catch them. Right. Keep in mind, like I said, any investment that comes through, we are auditing, one for vesting, but the second one, we're checking for blatantly prohibited transactions. So if we see you're looking to lend out of your IRA and on there we see you're lending to someone who has the same last name, well, we're gonna call you up and we're like, hey, do you have any relation to this person? And then you tell us, yeah, that's actually, that's my son or that's my grandson. Oh, that's prohibited. We're not gonna be allowed, we're not gonna be able to do that. Right. And it's not because we don't want to, it's because that is the IRS's regulation, right? IRC 4975 is where they talk about prohibited transactions to disqualified parties. So I guess a roundabout way to answer your question, you really just need a custodian that knows these rules that you can call and ask questions about.
Awesome. Great answer. The one thing I don't think we talked about a lot, I know we're kind of running out of time, but I want to talk a little bit about the impact on wealth building that IRAs have. Because one of the things I don't think you covered, just maybe I missed it, was the fact that you can actually, you can die and you can pass these things on, right? And there's still benefits that get carried along the way. Can you talk a little bit about maybe either a story you've seen in the past or just kind of generally speaking, where somebody has one of these, self-directed IRA accounts with a company like yourself, Quest, and, they pass away and there's tons of money in the account. And at that point, what happens to the person who inherits it? Can you talk a little bit about how the inner workings go?
Yeah, absolutely. So you're exactly right. Even if you're not looking or you're not in a position where you need the funds come retirement age, people will still utilize these accounts because of what they can offer as inheritance, right? So let's say, for example, you've got that Roth IRA, right? And when you reach retirement age, and by the time you pass now, that account is going to go to your beneficiaries, and there is no RMD owed on that Roth IRA. Now, it used to be that Roth IRA would now be stretched over the lifetime of that person who inherited, and they would have that lifetime, to eventually take the funds out, and by X date it would need to all be out. But after a Secure Act in 2020, they changed that to now it's a 10-year rule, but still it allows 10 years of tax-free growth. And as they're taking those funds out now, instead of it being like, okay, well, I have to consider when I take it out because I don't know, I'll pay income tax on it. It's in a Roth IRA, and when you passed, you were over the age of 59 and a half, you had met your 5 years. Now you're getting that Roth IRA completely free of that tax burden of distributions. So you're gifting that to your beneficiaries, that they get to now use this tax advantaged account that is more powerful than anything else they'll find, right? And so that's kind of one of the lesser thought of benefits of working with an IRA like this.
Yeah, and I think I know it's lesser thought of, lesser talked about, but I actually think it's a really important point because, I look at these things holistically, right? It's one piece of the pie, right? It's not like you're going to only use a self-directed IRA and it's your only tool, right? You've got your equities portfolio, you've got your self-directed IRA, you've got your whole life insurance policies. Like there's so many different investment vehicles, but in my opinion, any savvy investor, especially if you've built enough wealth where there's going to be somebody that's inheriting your assets, you want to definitely leverage the self-directed IRA as part of your overall strategy, right? So that's why it's really important that they're speaking to the financial advisors, their wealth advisors, but also making relationships with companies like Quest, so they can start having those conversations now, get everything set up now, so that they can put themselves in a position to benefit from that long term. Because just like anything else, the longer you have it, the more investments you make, the more compound interest you get, the more success you have in the account. There's no such thing as too early, I guess, is what I'm saying,
Exactly.
to set one of these things up.
Exactly. And you always have to think about, people will say like, oh well, I'm getting close to retirement. I know maybe it doesn't make sense now for me. Like, well, it's not really the case, right? If you've got, let's say, for example, Roth IRA, right? It's got that 5-year clock. Well, you want to open it up now? Let's say you open it now, you put $10 in, it's going to be considered funded January 1st, 2023. That's an entire year you're getting just completely for free. That starts that 5-year clock, right? So it's never too late. I can't speak highly enough about the Roth IRA. Personally, like I said, it's my personal favorite account. I just think it's such a powerful account, not only for you, but like you mentioned before, your beneficiaries.
Awesome. Well, very educational, Zach. I really appreciate you coming on. I think you added a lot of knowledge. I know we're going to get lots of questions. So when I send this recording out, I'll be sure to put your contact information at the bottom of it to make sure that people can reach out to you. I know we have it on the screen here as well. Any final words for anybody before we call it a night?
A lot of people will think, whenever it's natural, it's human nature that we think, okay, if given more time, I'm going to get more information, right? But that's not always the case. That's not always the case. Whenever you find a resource, right, a wealth of knowledge, whether that be Quest or, Brian, you guys are a wealth of knowledge when it comes to your asset class, right? Anytime you find that wealth of knowledge, please take advantage of it, right? That old saying, it sounds cliche, but your net worth is your network is your net worth. That's so true. Take advantage when you have someone who has that knowledge. Really ask them the questions. I enjoy having those long conversations with people where they ask me all the nitty gritty details. I don't mind. So that would be my closing remark.
And Zach, real quick, that's a great opportunity for you to plug. Can you just real quick talk about your education, both online and in person, that you guys do? I know you guys host regular webinars as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So every Tuesday at noon and every Saturday at noon, we host a class where a new speaker will come out every single week. They're going to go over a wide range of topics. Some of them have to deal with IRAs, some of them just being alternative assets in general, right? Sometimes we'll take a look at the overall market, and it'll just kind of be just a refresher on the state of the market. All right. We actually have our socials as well. These are in person in Houston, Austin, and Dallas. It used to be once a month. We shifted to just once a quarter. The reasons, because we can provide more bang for the buck, right? When you come out, we don't want you driving out every single month for something where, we'd rather just do it once a quarter and be able to give you as much as we can for that social. And then also we have upcoming tomorrow actually is our QuestCon Live, right? So it's a huge event. It's our end of the year event. It's completely free register. It's online, and we're going to be highlighting the women in alternative assets, right? So we have, obviously everyone's welcome, but it's an entirely women panel, right? Entirely women lineup of speakers that we have coming out, talking about just about every aspect of alternative asset investing there is. And then we're preparing for QuestCon. I'm sorry, not QuestCon, the Quest Expo. We had the Quest Expo last year. We took a year off to be sure we could take the time to really deliver. It's going to be the biggest one we're ever going to host. It's going to be 2024 in Dallas. Super excited about that. But the biggest one being QuestCon live tomorrow. Just go to the Quest website. Like I said, completely free to register and take a look. Watch. It's going to be an all-day event.
Awesome, Zach. Well, I appreciate you dropping that information, adding value to all of our watchers and our listeners today. So hopefully we'll get to have you come back soon. We do have in-person events as well, so I'd love to have you out and check out some of our properties and different things as well. But thanks again for being on. Just want to say thanks for everyone for attending. If you want to reach out to Zach, you have his information here on the screen. If you want to reach out to me, you know how to get a hold of me, Brian@headwaycapital.us, or you can shoot us a text or email as well. But I look forward to seeing everybody on our next webinar, and I hope you have a great night.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Zach.